Hey guys, I'm back with another 10 metal bands you haven't heard but should. This video is a bit behind. I just kept kind of getting sidetracked by other stuff. It's all CDs this week, which is just a random note. So if any of you are exclusively interested in looking at LPs or something, you're gonna have to sit this one out. But let's dive right in with some Swedish heavy metal from Century. Now, this is their debut album. They put out a killer demo. I can't remember if it was 1 or 2 years. My sense of time is just awful now. But the demo is really good, and the album didn't let down. This is the Conquest of Time, the CD version on No Remorse Records, of course. This is the one of those releases which is split between labels. So if you dig tapes, go to Head Split. If you dig vinyl, it was Electric Assault. So yeah, and both those are American. So I'm glad a European label did the CD, just because it kind of helps with getting hold of it a bit easier. But what do you get with Sanctuary? If you dig old school Swedish heavy metal like Gotham City, Heavy Load, those kinds of bands, very mid-paced, like Tiran being a newer band, it's very catchy. Sanctuary, maybe compared to a band like Tiran, put a bit more emphasis on melody. There's some kind of more Iron Maiden-y bits in there. And yeah, it's a really catchy, fun listen. I've played it over and over tons. They just released a promo video for Breakthrough, the second to last track. Really cool. Looks either like it was shot on kind of old school tape recorders, or maybe, you know, they just used an effect for that. But anyway, it's a fun watch and it's cool. They've done like a US tour as well, so they are breaking through, and deservedly so. Check out Sanctuary. Next we have Smolder, which is probably one of the bigger bands in this video. Arcane Power Doom, as they put it, or the actual album title being Violent Creed of Vengeance. This is one of those bands that I think is really in the underground, doing very well, and very much potentially that could change to a bigger breakthrough. This is on Cruz del Sur, great label, of course. Now, this new album, by far for me, is the best Smolder material. I like the previous stuff. And I guess the previous stuff, if you like that more kind of proto-doomy feel, that's maybe a bit more in that camp, whereas this goes full bore, just epic heavy metal, you know, think Sirathungal, Manila Road, those kinds of bands. It's a bit less doomy, but it makes up for it in just being super, super epic. So there's definitely a lot to enjoy about this album. It also just feels more refined to me. Especially in the vocals. I think that was always a bone of contention for some people, is that I know some people have like a funny thing about how the vocals were, and I think here just Sarah's performance is so strong. I think that people who maybe weren't convinced before might be now. Not to say that, in my opinion, there was anything wrong with the previous vocals, but that there, again, this feels like a more kind of refined delivery here from the entire band. The riffs are really strong. The drumming's dynamic. It just feels like Smolder at their very best, and they're, you know, already a cool band, already a really killer band, but they've just knocked it out of the park with this one for me. I saw them twice at Keep It True, because they played the pre-show and the main festival due to Witchfind dropping out. They just filled another slot, and both sets were really cool, very good live. Yeah, check out Smolder, and like I say, if maybe before some things didn't convince you, give them another shot with the new album, because in my opinion, they are better than they've ever been. Next we have some very groovy Norwegian black metal from Toulouse. This album is on Soul Cellar Records. Now, if you like that kind of black metal where it's just got that nice rock and roll groove sitting in the kind of mid to lower tempos, this is so damn catchy. It's got that kind of really evil, dark, stripped-back feel that maybe Carpathian Forest had, but Toulouse maybe pull that back a bit more. Slegest are another band who kind of play in that region, and yeah, I really enjoyed this one. The other album, the previous one's really cool. I've forgotten what it's called now, but it has a white cover. This one is Funskol. Yeah, really cool stuff. And if you like Norwegian black metal with a lot of groove, even some of the Mork stuff, that's definitely sitting in with a bit more of a groovy pace. Like the third album, Vredensdal, that had some really killer grooves on it. This is definitely in that kind of field. Now some more epic heavy metal and another No Remorse Records release. Mace and Chain, the debut album, Among Ancient Pillars. This is the solo project of David Nilsson from the Swedish death metal band Feral, going back to his roots of loving just traditional heavy metal, and I think it's a really cool project. The demo, I was interested to hear how it would progress to the album, because the sound on the album, in my opinion, is much better, especially in how the vocals are recorded. I think he's just got a bit more kind of a cool feel to it here. Now, this is definitely, to my ear, maybe some of you will disagree, but has more in common with modern epic heavy metal, and I'm speaking more about bands like Visigoth, Eternal Champion, those kinds of bands, as opposed to sort of maybe influenced by the bands that were influenced by the old bands, if that makes sense. Although I don't doubt that there's a lot of kind of Manowar and Omen and all that good stuff present here too. I definitely think bands like Visigoth and Eternal Champion have played a part, especially in how the sound is actually delivered, at least, and the production of the thing. But yeah, Among Ancient Pillars is a really cool debut, and yeah, it's definitely interesting hearing someone that I've known more from the death metal scene doing more traditional stuff, because, you know, he pulls off both, so that's cool. Next we have some great death metal from Kommand, a band on 20 bucks spin. This is Death Age. Now, I love Bolt Thrower. Some of you do, some of you don't. That's an argument for another time. But if you love Bolt Thrower worship done well, with, you know, some asphyx, some kind of the slower incantation stuff, this is probably gonna really tickle that itch, or scratch that itch, whatever the fuck the saying is. It just feels like very genuinely crusty, dark, slow to mid-tempo death metal. Definitely with a bit of a punk influence. The art kind of gives that away, I think. But yeah, it's a really cool album. It's very simple, and it's very effective in that simplicity, and yeah, I dig that. Next we have Putrid Yell on Pulverized Records with Consuming Aberration. This is a bit more in the Swedeath kind of camp, so, you know, those kind of grinding HM2E guitars. This is really kind of filthy production, some nice gross autopsy riffs coming through. Yeah, really cool album, old school death metal. Love the art, kind of just looks like old Fulci DVDs, and, you know, I'll never complain about that as an aesthetic. Just straightforward, short to the point, old school death metal with that kind of Swedish feel to it. Next we have a Finnish band, Tramalizer, who bring in, again, Soul Cellar Records, before I forget, and this is Fumes of Funeral Pyres. They bring in a much more kind of grindy touch. A good Finnish band maybe to compare them to would be Cadaveric Incubator, especially in the vocals, those just roaring evil vocals. A lot of kind of carcass and stuff on this. Yeah, if you like your death metal old school with a big old dose of grind in it, I think Tramalizer will really appeal. My brain has just gone blank. There's some other really good Finnish bands like that, and I'm just drawing a blank. Fuck. But yeah, really cool stuff. I think maybe stuff like Zizma would be perhaps a good place to compare them to. Yeah, nice mix of stuff. Really intense, really just scathing sound on this thing. And yeah, sounds evil as hell. Next, some British black metal from Old Forest, another Soul Cellar release. We're getting a lot of Soul Cellar stuff in here. So yeah, props to them for putting out some cool stuff. This is black metal, as you might associate with the British sound. It's very melodic. It's quite orthodox, but yeah, with a lot of melodic and atmospheric influences, as the artwork and just the general vibe of this might give away, or however you want to say it. But yeah, Sutvika is just a cool example of British black metal, I guess. Still, British black metal is a very weird thing for me, because there's, in my opinion, some amazing bands, like in recent years, bands like Valorauka. So some of that Abduction stuff for me has been some of the more interesting black metal, with especially the second and third ones, because they sound quite a bit like Leviathan. And then there's also that kind of British tendency to go for the more kind of post-black metal-y sound, which isn't so much my bag. This is sort of a nice middle ground where it's like melodic, but it's, you know, it's still got riffs, it's still got, you know, it still feels like a black metal record rather than maybe like a folk record with harsh vocals. So yeah, cool stuff from the UK. Now we have some great doom metal on Evil Confrontation Records. Sorry, this is a label I'm not as familiar with. Condenados, I'm guessing that is either Spanish or Portuguese, and I'm really sorry if I butchered that. This is just some of that cool rocky doom metal. It's got a bit of a proto-doom feel, so some nice Sabbathy bits. It's got some kind of more psychedelic bits, some bits that maybe might appeal to stoners more. It's just kind of like a little smorgasbord of just some good doom metal. And I think if you like doom metal in any of its many kind of sub-iterations, then El Camino de la Serpiente, again, I'm not a Spanish speaker, sorry. Something of the serpent, I can say is probably what that means. But again, it might not be, so, you know, sue me. But yeah, really cool, nice mix of just good doom metal. Weirdly, I find it in the summer, it's been getting quite hot here in the UK, and I've been playing quite a lot of doom metal stuff, you know, like, I guess more like trad bands like Candlemass and Saint Vitus, but then some bands like Chemist and Pallbearer. I don't know what it is, maybe the good weather and the happy sunny vibes. I'm just like, no, everyone's going to have to be fucking miserable who lives, you know, a few doors either end of my house. But yeah. And then finally we have Vredensdal, another Soul Cellar release, which is some American black metal, which is something I'm learning now because it says New Wave of USBM on the back, whereas I was going to guess that they were a Norwegian or at least Scandinavian band. From the sound, they have a very kind of orthodox, not the very start of Norwegian black metal, but kind of 1994, 1995, when it started introducing a bit more melodic stuff, you know, when bands like Ulver and Vinde and stuff like that was kind of adding some almost neoclassical stuff as well. There's some very good guitar work on here. It's a bit more stripped back maybe than the bands mentioned, but again, those might just be some good touch points. But yeah, if you like your kind of typical, especially Swedish black metal, like this is definitely gonna be one for you. Cool artwork too. I always like trolls in artwork. I mean, I think that that's just something that's ingrained in the Nordic side of my lineage to love trolls. So yeah, that is 10 metal bands you haven't heard but should once again, and I hope you guys support the cool bands and labels. I'm pretty sure all of these came from Sure Shot Works, so thanks to those guys for hooking me up with great records to talk about. You know, easily one of the best promotion companies to work with if you're in a band and you need some good promotion. That they've not told me to say that. I tend to gravitate towards their releases because of how good of a job they do, and they always seem to be a pleasure to cover and easy people to work with. So I'm just giving my bias. And yeah, if you are thinking you need some music to listen to, there's so much good stuff in here. Yeah, take it easy, and until next time, stay metal.